Hello and welcome to another post-game edition of the Nittany Dispatch. I am John Sauber, Penn State football beat reporter for the Sun Daily Times. She is Audrey Snyder, Penn State football beat reporter for The Athletic. And we just watched a game that was just underwhelming in every sense of the word.
John, Penn State got the win, 27-6 against Rutgers. Holy God, it was 10-6 at the half. Penn State had a lead. Drew Allar exited early in the third quarter. This was, I want to say, a rock fight, but Rutgers really didn't have many rocks to throw.
That's offensive to rock fights, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, before we get too deep into it, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. If you're on YouTube, click that thumbs up button down below. So hit the subscribe button, go to Apple Podcasts, leave a review, leave a 5-star rating. We always appreciate that. And for your troubles, I do have some photos of the scary stairs. I don't know if you took any, Audrey, but
there's a good chance, John, that we would not have been recording tonight because I could have lost a limb during the final minutes of regulation. I sprinted to the elevator and I heard the door shutting and threw my arm in it, hoping it would stop because otherwise I knew I'd have to take the stairs. And thankfully it stopped. I have both arms here intact to show for it. So I didn't get any pictures, but
I took some from below.
Stater Ryan Parsons sent us a good photo, which I thought perfectly encapsulated the rust spots on the steps. He tweeted that out.
They're going to topple.
It's really, John, has saved me and you from having to go toward the steps to take the photo.
Well, see, I took some from below, so I got the view like looking up, like you can see the height, and it honestly gave me anxiety to even take those photos, and I hated every second of it. I am just now seeing the photos that Ryan took, and I'm getting anxiety looking at that, and I'm going to switch tabs back to looking at the podcast because I hated every second. But no, I do have those. I will tweet those out either tonight. We're obviously recording Saturday night, or sometime Sunday morning. I'll make sure everyone gets to see at least the upward view of the whole thing that I did not have to go down. But no, this was like this. You mentioned rock fight. Like this is just an underwhelming game altogether, right? Like it was. The offense wasn't any different, right? Like the starting quarterback gets hurt. Like it's you know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where how do you feel good about this as a Penn State fan?
Here's the thing, right? And I wrote about this in my story on The Athletic afterward. If anyone expected that the offense was going to be drastically different or drastically improved in a week, you shouldn't have come into this game with that line of thinking because that was never going to be the case, right? This is an off-season project, off-season overhaul for the next OC because it's an issue. I mean, this was just that first half was absolutely ugly when you look at it. The box score, I mean, Penn State's receiving corps today, John, if we don't pull it up, we don't look at it. Who is the leading receiver today?
So I know
who is the leading wide receiver today.
Okay, I do know this. Amari Evans had one catch for 25 yards because he flexed afterward.
Because
we were talking about it in the press box.
Someone. He was tied.
Oh, he was tied with someone else had 25 yards?
No, with one catch.
Oh, yeah, there were several guys that had one catch.
Not many of them, John. Liam Clifford had one catch for 15 yards, and Kaytron Allen had one catch for 6 yards.
Yeah. The two leading pass catchers were Tyler Ward and Theo Johnson, who had 2 catches each. It's not good.
Yeah, 7 total receptions today. Again, that is where this offense is. Keandre Lambert-Smith now, you take the Michigan game, you add this game into it. It combined whopping 1 catch for 6 yards. That is your number one receiver. This offense is bad. I mean, it's a tough watch. Now, I will say, granted, this was a rough week for the offense in terms of all the logistics that were at play after firing Mike Yurcich. Ty Howell was up in the box as we expected. Jaywan Sider on the sidelines. We do not know who called plays. James Franklin didn't say during the week.
Do I dare speculate on this? Because
I was watching... We haven't talked about this, but I might be able to... Go ahead.
Yeah, I was watching through my binoculars, and I was trying to see Jaywan Sider, because obviously we can't see Ty Howell. He's in the same building that we're in, I think.
You mean you didn't stick your head out the window and
That's correct.
Try to look down on a level?
There was a cable hanging in front of Bob Flounders of Penn Live that dangled in front of him. We thought maybe they were doing the 2 tin cups and a string to communicate between Howell and Sider down on the sideline. Yeah. But I did not see Sider speaking when I thought calls were coming in. always, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know if that was the case in the red zone. Like I didn't really check it
Hmm.
in specific situations, but every time I looked, he was not talking on the headset when a call would be coming in. I don't want to draw any conclusions from that. I don't want to make, but like that is an observation that I had that I don't know that everyone else would be able to see. Like obviously, if you're
Hmm.
watching on TV,
At
you can't
home,
see that.
right?
Yeah. So I did not see him speaking when at the time that I thought a play call would be coming in. Do you have any perspective on that? Like, were you looking for
Um,
that as well?
yes, I was looking for that. I'm with you, and that it didn't seem like Jaywan was doing as much talking. But again, maybe I was looking at all the wrong spots.
Yeah,
But James Franklin had two sheets in front of him today
he
instead of
did.
one. There were two. So I did take note of that. I zoomed in with my binoculars and my camera. Two sheets. I think it's safe to say he was more involved today, John. I think that's probably a fair assumption. Maybe, who knows at this
I mean, he
point.
was he was more
Um,
involved throughout the week. Like he said
yeah,
as
I
much,
mean, he
right?
was in
Like
the
he was.
quarterback meeting rooms throughout the week.
Frankly,
Um,
he should be more involved. Like that is
yeah,
we talk about his responsibility as a head coach. Whether he was or he wasn't, he should have been more involved today to help Hal out, to help Sider out, to help the whole
absolutely.
offensive staff out because
Danny
he is most
O'Brien was in
familiar
a
with
big spot.
like part of his responsibility, and I think if this is the case, and he probably handled it well, is to be as involved as possible. Frankly, had he gone into it and said that he was going to call plays, I don't think it would have been that much of an issue, right? Like I don't
No,
like I think someone he was in a unique position because he has said before how much he works with the offense, where
Mhm.
he is in those meetings, he has experience doing those things, like, and so it would have made it a little bit easier. I don't fault him for handling it the way he did, but I do think like there is credence to like just letting him call plays today. I don't think that was the case though, and I do think like his involvement probably helped the situation and streamlined a process that could have been really messy. I think all things considered, they handled this really well.
Yeah.
Like the change that had to be made was like the
Well,
changes they had to make. Like it could have been a disaster from a communication standpoint. Didn't feel like they had any issues with like false starts on snap counts being wrong. You know what I mean? Plays not
delay
getting in,
games,
causing
none of that.
delay of
Yeah,
game. Yeah, it
they
didn't feel
weren't
like there
burning
were any of
timeouts
those.
for. Yeah,
Yeah, no logistical issues that I thought could have been a problem, and that's a credit to James Franklin. It's credit to the coaching staff. It's credit to the players. It's credit to everyone involved in this.
James Franklin did say after the game something along the lines of like there are positives if people are willing to talk about them. I think we just found one of them, John.
Yeah,
Um, and I will say too. So Drew Allar gets hurt early in the third quarter. I'll start by saying I asked James Franklin about it after the game. I don't think he particularly enjoyed my
I
question.
think I just like. Do you want me to think? Because this, I find this as the
Go ahead.
observer of this situation. This cracks me up every time because it happens all the time, right? We saw a situation earlier this year, and I'll get back to today in a second. We saw a situation earlier this year when James was asked about JB Nelson and his status and said he doesn't talk about injuries unless they're season ending. And it was very
Mhm.
curt about it, was like short with the reporter. And then I asked like two questions later, how has Trey Wallace handled not playing? This was back in like I want to say like early October, late September when Wallace wasn't playing because he was hurt. And James said something along the. It was after Northwestern. I think it was maybe the UMass or
Yes.
the bye week.
Yep.
He said like, "Oh, we would have had Trey back for Northwestern, but
He got
someone
stepped
stepped
on,
on
or
the
yeah.
he got stepped on." Clearly pointing to a lower leg injury, I assume.
Hmm.
Uh, and but like because of that they held him out precautionary. So he like right after saying he doesn't talk about injuries, he tells
He
us
does.
specifically, essentially, the body part that a guy got hurt and the timeline for when he's going to come back. Which brings us to today, where Mark Brennan asked the initial question. James just kind of avoided it because it's part of a two-part question, and when like he will do that, where he will pick and
He
choose the part he
focused
wants
on
to
the
answer.
play calling part of the
Yeah,
question and not
which is
the
fine.
quarterback
Yeah.
part.
And so you circled back, as you should, by the way, as any
Yeah.
good reporter would, and credit to you for doing that.
I fell
And
on
you
the sword
asked,
today for the beat.
yeah. Well, here's the thing. Once I saw you were
Somebody
getting the
had
mic,
to.
once I saw you were getting the mic, I was like, I don't need to do this now. Like, I don't need to get the mic. Audrey's going to ask this. But you asked about the timeline, and again, James says that he doesn't talk about injuries, and then immediately after it says he doesn't think it's serious, but they don't know for sure. So like he's saying he's not going to answer it, and then he answers it.
And then he
And
answered it,
I
right.
never understand it. This is
The
why we continue to
interesting
ask, by the way, for people who are
well,
curious as to why we
yeah,
keep asking
and
about
I
injuries,
get
because sometimes we get answers
and
and
because
because
it
it's
is
our job.
literally our job. Yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah.
the thing, right? Like, to me, you come out of the game today with a question that many people have, which is Drew Allar okay? Is your five-star quarterback, your starting quarterback, is he okay? That's the question. That's the main talking point. I would be absolutely negligent if I did not ask that.
Yes.
So, I asked that, and again, he says he's not going to talk about it. That it wouldn't be fair to Drew and his family to talk about it. Which again, like, I'm not asking for what
Yeah, no
the
one's asking
specific
for
is.
his
I'm
like
just
blood type.
asking. Yeah. James, is he O negative or A positive?
Yeah,
Thoughts?
never
um,
understand this.
yeah. So anyway, we got a bit of an answer, but also I think
Yeah,
to me the telling part was what we observed during the game, right? So Drew Allar has an 8-yard run early in the third quarter, takes a hard hit. Right away, I mean, it was one of those hits that I gasped. Like my end of the press
yeah. There
box.
was a noise made in the press box.
Yes, like it was like one of those, ooh, like he got rocked. And honestly, at first, when he got up and he kind of didn't look himself, I thought maybe it was a concussion because he looked kind of wobbly.
I thought this was interesting because Bo Pribula postgame said that he
Hmm.
saw that Drew looked dazed, and I
Yeah.
thought so too. And then when the next snap, he takes a snap, it's an RPO. He doesn't hand the ball off, so he's throwing the screen on the to the boundary, and he throws it like kind of intentionally off target, or maybe not intentionally, but like just
It
feels
was,
like he's just chucking it toward the
yeah.
sideline,
And the
and
ball
it was one of those things where it was like, does he kind of like, is there something going on
wrong with
where
him. Yeah.
is there something wrong with him, like, mentally? Like, is it a head injury, right? Like,
Hmm.
is it a brain injury? Which is obviously, like, we call them concussions. They're brain injuries. They're very
Yeah.
serious. But, like,
Terrifying. Yeah.
it yeah, it's one of those things where I was like, "Oh," and then he kinda, like, wobbled a little bit heading to the sideline, and we didn't know what it was, and,
I
it
guess
could have been a
he
head
had a
injury.
bloody nose, apparently, somebody said
I did
from a
not know
I
this.
didn't see that from a
Yeah.
distance, but somebody had said something, he had a bloody nose or something. I haven't had a
Well,
chance to rewatch it yet, but I will be I will be looking for
yeah.
blood when I go back. O negative, A positive,
Yeah,
whatever it
we'll
is.
make
Yeah.
sure we get it tested too, so we can ask about it. But no, and then it seems pretty clear after he's on the sideline for a bit that it's a shoulder injury,
Mhm.
or
Or
something. You know what I mean? His
something.
arm,
Yeah, I mean, he was
and
going like
then
this, he could not lift
yeah,
his arm, but
for
there, I mean,
the
it was
audio listeners,
oh
Audrey
gosh,
is
yeah.
raising her arm up. Essentially, Drew could not raise his arm above shoulder level,
Mhm.
and even when they were singing the alma mater, I can't remember the players he was next to. He puts his left arm around a teammate, and he like looked at the teammate to his right and like laughed, like, 'cause he's like, I can't do it. And then he like I couldn't hear what he was saying, but he was showing them then how far he could raise his right arm up, which couldn't be. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to guess what it could even be, but it looks like it's his shoulder, right? Essentially, for my
And I
uninformed opinion.
wondered, John, from yeah, because he was in the tent for several minutes, and then when he
He
came
was there a
out, I
while.
mean, yeah, probably 5 minutes, it felt like, because again, I had the binoculars on, so I was sitting like this for
So
about 5 minutes just
I
looking at the
forgot there was a
tent.
game going on.
Yeah, so I will have to go back and watch that Bo Pribula drive.
I
I
was going to
did
say
see
a
the
funny
39-yard
anecdote.
run, but
Oh, that's the thing. I didn't. Like,
you didn't see the run?
everyone kept asking me about the explosive play, and I was like, it's Drew Allar, right? You're looking at the
Yeah,
10. And like, I was like, he did what? Like, I didn't even see how they got down the field because I
right
was like
sideline,
trying
he
to see that.
crease
Yeah.
and boom. Yeah, I think the Aller, the imagery there, I think tells the story.
Yeah.
We'll hear from James Franklin on Monday, but yeah, I mean it's a short week. They got to go
Yeah.
to Michigan State for a Friday night Black Friday game at Ford Field. So again, you're losing a day. Absolutely, it's going to be asked about Monday. We will be at practice Tuesday this week because everything practice wise for us is bumped up a day because of the Friday game. So that's what all eyes will be on. Now, John, Drew Aller exits. He's doing all that stuff with his throwing shoulder, his right shoulder, that right shoulder, right arm that
Yep.
his future is riding on.
Yes.
Bo Pribula comes in, rips off the 39-yard run. Penn
Allegedly.
State. I was there. I saw it. Kind of. I was like this in
No,
kind of the corner of
I
my
saw
eye,
it in
right?
the play by play.
It was yeah, so it's on the box score. It's true. But Penn State 17 consecutive rushes with Mr. Pribula. Now, this was not if people tuned out. I know I had some people on Twitter who said that at halftime they'd seen enough. They were going to go put up their Christmas lights. Again, when Pribula came in the game, I'm looking at it right now. Penn State was up 10-6. So this was not one of those, hey, you have a big lead, you're milking the clock type of games. You're in a 10-6 rock fight with Rutgers and 17 consecutive runs against a Rutgers rush defense that's really good. I mean, this is, I think, gosh, I should know because I wrote about this. Maybe I think I want to say 13th nationally against the run coming into Saturday. I think.
I believe Kyle Mononga was leading the Big Ten in rushing yards heading
And he
into the
was
week.
Yeah, but this is a team that a Rutgers team offensively that didn't have much firepower. But you look at a Penn State offense that, again, John, is this sustainable? If, and again, we don't know this to be the case yet, but if Bo Pribula is your quarterback at Ford Field Friday night against Michigan State, can you win with a guy who we only saw attempt one pass and it was completed to Tyler Warren for 9 yards? Can you
Are
win
they,
with that?
are they still playing Michigan State?
They are. Last I checked,
Then
yes.
yes, they might win with. They might be able to win with me at quarterback. But no, I think like they could not win with me at quarterback. That is absolutely.
I was gonna say,
would get
John, is that a
destroyed.
bet? Do we need to? What do we need
They
to
would
do to make this happen?
they would be playing 10 on
GoFundMe?
11 while I cry in the corner. But no, I do think like this is like they're going to win this game, right? This Michigan State team is down bad. And I do think that this is it's not a walkover by any means.
Listen, John, it's the Land Grant Trophy game. If you don't get excited for that game, you don't have a
It's the
soul.
last time for a while too. But no, I think like I do think this is a winnable game no matter what, which is why I was going to mention this earlier. Unless Drew is 100% with 0% re-injury risk or 0% than he would have any other week, like let's say 5 months down the road, I would not play him in this game. I don't think it's worth it. I don't think getting the kind of momentum they're looking to get is worth it. Let him get healthy, spend whatever it is, 6 weeks getting ready for a potential bowl game, right? 5.5 weeks, and go from there. Yes, you want to make a New Year's Six game. You can do that with Bo Pribula at quarterback. I think Bo can pass a little bit. I don't think it's like it is funny. Like every time this seems like this happens.
Have we seen it?
This happened with Will Levis too, though, right?
Yep.
they just ran him no matter what. It's like
it was the Levis battering ram package. It was the Tommy Stevens Lion package. It's the Bo Pribula package.
It's like you watched him in practice, right? And he can throw. Bo Pribula does not have that kind of arm. But I do think he can throw, and I do think he can provide value. Yeah, 2 actually. But he can provide value in the passing game that I think that it would make it so it's not like it shouldn't anyways look like the Will Levis game when he started. Now, if it does, I think that's we're going to be having a long conversation in Detroit next week.
Oh boy.
Yeah, but I do think that they're in a good situation because of who they play, because it is like kind of a short week where maybe Michigan State has a harder time preparing for Bo Pribula, right? Like which could help them out. I think they're going to end up winning on Friday. So, yeah, I think they can win with Bo Pribula. And if there's any risk to Drew Allar, then I think they should try to win with Bo Pribula. And there's kind of no harm, no foul as long as even if they win by 2, like a win is a win, right? Like you go in, you try to grind the game out and win.
We're going to tell that to all the Penn State fans. Oh, hey, sorry, you went into Ford Field and you just won by 2 against a Michigan State team that's down bad. Don't be alarmed. Everything's fine.
Yeah, but without your starting quarterback and they win that game, they're probably going to a New Year's Six bowl. And so like that's the goal at this point, right? The playoffs not happening. New Year's Six bowl is on the table and likely as long as they go undefeated. And so I think that's a priority, doing it however they can, and then using that game, whatever it is, whatever bowl game, maybe it ends up not being a New Year's Six game, to be the launching point for next season because they desperately need something to be a launching point.
You know
they
what, John?
Desperately need to find something that works.
I don't buy the launching point theory anymore. And I say this because I used to believe in it. I used to think there was value in it. That team that we saw in the Rose Bowl compared to the one we saw this year, night and day.
But I think there's a lot of turnover there that makes that different, right? To me, the launching point is all about
who's
all about Drew.
Opt out. Yeah, maybe it's about Drew. Maybe it's about these running backs. But I do think it's tough to evaluate and tough to use a springboard for a bowl game when we don't know who's going to opt out, right? Like that's the other part of this.
We don't know who's going to be calling the offense next year.
There is that.
Like that's
we don't know who's going to enter the transfer portal. And it was
just
senior
from
day.
a standpoint. To me, it's like it's the launching point is for Drew and Drew alone, and nothing else matters other than making sure he is like you're giving him a chance to succeed, to end it on a high note, to give him some confidence going into spring ball, before risking like that. This is just like all downhill from here for everyone.
All downhill from here. That's a rough sequence. You know who was not downhill for today, John? I've got a positive. James Franklin said about positives and finding them. I found one. Amari Evans. We saw him today. We saw him early.
So I have a theory.
Uh-oh.
So do we think we can deduce who was upset at Amari Evans and who didn't like the Bo Pribula package?
I think his initials are M and Y.
Yeah, listen, I don't know this for certain. I'm just like context clues, like based on the information that you, the listener,
we saw
also
Liam
has.
Clifford earlier today as well.
Yeah, like listen, Amari Evans was not playing much. Maybe it's just coincidental, right? But Amari Evans was not playing much when Mike Yurcich was the offensive coordinator. The first game after Mike Yurcich gets fired, you will have the snap counts far quicker than I will. Amari Evans felt like he set a season high in snaps for like actual, like meaningful snaps, right? Like not
with
like
the
just
offense,
end of game,
not special teams.
Yeah, right. Or even like before the game's out of hand. And so like I don't know. It just sometimes 1-1 just equals 2, and that feels like that could be the case here.
Could be, because I think the other thing we could take away from today is that the Bo Pribula package we saw in the first half when Drew Allar was healthy. We saw it the first half, so I think this was James Franklin saying like, "This is what we wanted to do, and well, we just haven't done this often this year because well, maybe the coordinator went rogue, maybe it just didn't happen, whatever. Maybe it had to do with the defense. Maybe I'm oversimplifying here, but." It was there.
Listen,
we saw it.
Yeah,
it went for 4 yards. Otherwise, I mean,
I hated the way they did it today, though, and I stand by this. If you're gonna call that, have both guys be involved. Otherwise, you're playing 10 on 11, and that's essentially what they did because Drew was split out wide and like had no involvement in the play. I just don't like doing that. Right?
Use it in the red zone.
Like if you or like if you're gonna not have Drew involved in the play, just take him out. It's easier. Right? Like I wouldn't do that. I would rather have both involved, just leave Drew Allar in the game because I think he's their best quarterback and their best chance at winning is with him passing or running, frankly, because he's also an excellent runner as we're learning. Not the fastest guy on the planet, but mobile enough and a long strider that can get going a little bit. But I just don't like taking the ball out of his hands, and I don't like taking it out of his hands just to have him stand to the side and watch. It's like listen, it's tough to criticize this offense because it's a lot of people involved in it today.
Is it, John? Isn't that what we've done all year?
Yeah, right, but the situation changed, right?
Today.
Like now you have people that are being forced into a difficult situation, and not that that's not the rule, right? You're asking either Jay Sider or Ty Howell to be involved in something or to do something that they were supposed to be involved in, but didn't really seem like they had much of a say. Didn't seem like anyone had much of a say. But like you're asking them to take a massive step forward.
Let's stop right there because this has been on my mind for days. And you said no one else had a say in it. And I know I need to move forward with my thinking on this, but we heard from James Franklin last week that the game plans weren't satisfactory, right? That the play calling, they got away from stuff. You just said that there's nobody that can change that. There is one person who can change that.
Yeah, but listen,
in the flow of a game, it's hard. I get that. Absolutely.
Yes, I don't think you ever want to overrule your offensive coordinator because then you're essentially stripping them of confidence. Now we can have a discussion depending on when decisions were made, which we don't fully know when decisions were made, to be clear. I'm not saying that one way or another, but like it's difficult to take those duties away from the guy who's in charge of it, right? Like it's difficult because then you're either doing it yourself or you're putting someone else in that difficult position. And at that point, like if you're taking away Mike Yurcich's ability to call plays, you may as well fire him, right? And that like it happened. So I get it. I can't kind of get with that though, right? Like I can't get with the idea that James should be overruling or calling plays. And that's one thing, by the way, I think we've talked about on here, like everyone talks about James meddling in the offense. I don't think either of us thinks he was calling plays or anything.
That's an interesting word. No. I've never said that he was calling plays.
What we've said is what we've said this whole time is what James said on the record, like that he was in offensive meetings, that he is making suggestions on the headset.
Involved on the offensive side of the ball because that is his background. That is not a hot take. That is not spewing BS. That is fact, and that makes sense.
And it's everything he has said on the record. He has said it. I can't stress that enough. But no, I do think I think everyone was kind of in a bad spot here. And so like asking James to be more forward with Yurcich, even like by doing more, I think it would have been unfair to Yurcich. It would have been unfair to James, right? To expect him to be able to do that like in the middle of a game. I do think.
I'm not saying in the middle of a game, John. I'm saying whatever. If something went awry between Ohio State and Michigan week, That's where again, and this is just where I'm thinking aloud here. But that's kind of where my head goes with it. But again, I need to. I'm moving forward with my thinking. We're moving on here. I am shifting topics. I'm going to find some more positives. Another positive today. Well, I would say positive, but then I think I might turn it into to a negative once we get
Jeez.
into it. Um, Kaytron Allen still looks good, running hard.
I know why you said about this could turn into a negative
Um,
because the numbers don't like the numbers will lie to you a little bit on this one. Nick Singleton did really well in garbage time. There was one play that stood out. I think it was
he had the
in
20-yard run late.
he had a 20-yard run late, but
He
even
took
that,
a
like he
hard hit
attempts.
after that.
Yeah, I also missed that because I was walking down onto the field because I go
Honestly,
down with 6.5 minutes left.
I thought maybe he had gotten concussed on that play because he went down
I hadn't seen
hard
it.
and like it looked like the back of his helmet almost hit off the ground and he looked a little
Some people were
wobbly getting
tweeting
up.
at me about that.
It was yeah, it was
Surprising.
a scary scene. But then he was because Trey Potts came in and then Nick was back in the game. But yeah, no, continue your train of thought with this was you thought I was gonna go negative with this, but I haven't yet.
Well, I just didn't think Nick was running the ball well until that kind of garbage time
Mhm.
drive, right? Like
Yeah, it was
he
because I
had a
was ready to
play.
file my story, and
Yeah.
I had that he had 7 carries for, I believe,
So
18 yards at
so
that
this
point,
I
and then the
had this in my
stats changed
takeaways.
right as I went to hit send.
I had this in my takeaways that Kaytron outplayed him. The numbers might tell you otherwise, but like in the meaningful parts of the game,
Mhm.
Kaytron flat out outplayed him. And there's one play near the goal line. I think they settled for a field goal when it happened, where Singleton has a chance. Like there is a wide open lane to his left. Like if he just cuts left, it's there. And instead he like runs straight into a linebacker or straight into his line, and where linebacker
Yep.
brings him down. And it's one of those things where it's like that's been the issue all year, right? He's just not seeing it for whatever reason. The
Mhm.
holes in front of him, the field in front of him, he's just not seeing it as well as you would hope if you're a Penn State fan, as well as I'm sure James Franklin would hope. And like to me, Kaytron is so clearly the better running back right now. There were so many times I started my rewatch. I'm basically through the first quarter of the offense. I watched the offense first on YouTube TV, and then I go back and watch the defense. But like where Kaytron is like finding space, right? He's
Mhm.
slithery and getting into these little gaps, and like like the B gap opens up, and then he just kind of slides through it and gets an extra 2 yards out of that. They're just not getting that out of Nick Singleton right now. And I keep saying this, but like the disparity has to grow as far as I'm concerned. Like Kaytron has to be the guy right now. We'll take a brief break from the podcast to talk to you about the good people at Voodoo Brewing Company in State College, located at 201 Elmwood Street. Voodoo is our personal favorite to go get beer really any day of the week, specifically on those days when we got nothing going on. You just want to go sit maybe by the fire because they have the fire pits open with it getting colder out. You want
Get
to go
some
sit by the
food.
yeah, enjoy the fresh air by the stream, enjoy some food. It's just an all around great environment.
You know what else you need to do this week, John? What I need to
What's
do?
that, Audrey?
Go into Voodoo, get some beers to go, and
Yes,
get some beers to take to your Thanksgiving gatherings. You and
that's
I
right.
will be hitting the road this week, but for those who actually get to celebrate Thanksgiving with their loved ones, I'd recommend getting in there, getting some beers to go because, holiday season's upon us, John. It's stressful.
That's right. It's a great
Settle
gift
up to
too.
the table, gonna have some unique conversations guaranteed around that Thanksgiving table. You don't want to be caught without something in your glass.
That's right. And some of us won't be able to do that because we'll be watching Audrey get very upset about the Packers in Ford Field, which I will probably enjoy more than she will.
That's probably why I
Uh,
need the beers to go with me. Yeah.
that's right. But no, Voodoo's a great place to be. Tuesday nights they've got pub trivia. Thursday nights they've got bingo, both at 6 p.m. Both a great time. Go down there, see Josh, Wes, the rest of the great staff at Voodoo. That's Voodoo Brewing Company in State College, located at 201 Elmwood Street. Back to the show.
The stats are a little skewed late, but it ended up Kaytron Allen's 16 carries for a nice 69 yards, 2 touchdowns. Nick Singleton, 11 carries for 61 yards, long of 20. Again, that came late in the fourth quarter. Yeah, I'm with you, John. That was what my takeaway said. Once Singleton then had the extra yards there, um, they're very locked in on this rotation. I just I think at some point you got to let it go, but I also feel like we're beyond that some point. I think that some point was Ohio State week.
That's the
We
thing.
talked about
Does
it
it even
then. So is it
what
going to change?
changes?
Probably not. Yeah.
what changes if they change it, right? Other than maybe they risk making one of those two guys unhappy. And like, so I get it from that
And
standpoint,
that's
but like, you're right. It might be too little
mhm.
too late at this point.
And that point you make about, you're trying to keep everybody happy. Somebody had asked me about it this week. It was one of my mailbag questions in the Athletic, and they asked about that, and I never got to it because I ended up doing an OC focused mailbag because Lord knows we have enough questions on the offensive coordinator these days and what happens with the search. Um, but I do think there's some truth to that, and I'm not just saying it running back, but I'm saying across the board on this roster, right? Like this is college football in 2023 with the portal, like you've got to have the pulse on your roster at all times, which I feel like James Franklin does a really good job with that, of knowing like, hey, this guy's mad, or maybe this guy's mom, or this guy's dad, or this guy's high school coach. Somebody's in my ear about
Somebody
this.
involved in his circle, right?
Yeah, somebody's involved, and again, like, this is all the stuff that falls on his plate that goes way out of the it's part of the job description, even though if it's in the fine print somewhere. But yeah, I do think that absolutely happens. That happens here, that happens everywhere. No, we don't know who's gonna be back on this roster next year, but certainly this is the time of year we're asking, right? I mean, senior day today, yes, every senior walks. Then they decide typically, or they go public with their decisions later, whether or not they're coming back. It was kind of interesting, John, down on the field, the final minutes. I was watching Olu Fashanu, and after every home game this year, especially, he's, I thought, done a really nice job of trying to soak in the moments, right? Like earlier this season, I caught him, and this is when you realize how massive this guy's hands are, taking a selfie with a kid in the student section. And he's done stuff like that all throughout the year and going over to his parents along the railing, and talking with them after the game. And he was out on the field for a long time. And I asked him about that afterward, kind of like what was going through your head as you came off the field. And he's like, well, if it's the last time, and then, I mean, come on, we all know this is probably going to be the last time for the guy, John, right? Like
Yeah.
this is the
For a
last
lot
time.
of those guys.
But a lot of the guys, they don't want to say that, right? And that kind of
Yeah.
falls into like the Penn State line of thinking of it's about the team. We don't want to make it about us. Um, but yeah, there were a lot of those moments, at the end of the game. And to me, thinking back to the offense here for a second, like Theo Johnson said afterward, he hasn't, you know, decided one way or the other. I mean, I think logically we both, or I do at least, assume he's not coming back, but he
Yeah,
said
this
he's
was
gotta think
something
of it, right?
he told
Tyler
me
Warren
immediately after.
gets
Yeah,
interesting, I
well,
think.
I was gonna say Theo mentioned right after the Rose Bowl last year to me that he was coming back. So I think it'll be like a post bowl game
Is that at
decision
our
or
was
like
that at our Disneyland availability, John? I feel like it
no,
might have
that
been.
was that was right after the Rose Bowl. Like legitimately as soon as it ended when we had like we were in the
Oh,
scrums and
yeah,
everything.
because we
Yeah.
kept asking him about it throughout the week,
Yeah.
and yeah,
And I was the only one by him when he got out there. And so I you know what I mean?
yeah.
Shoot or shoot, baby. But no, the I do think we're gonna get some answers on these guys, and we'll talk about them as they come through.
Mhm. Oh,
But I
for
think
sure,
there
for
are some
sure.
obvious ones, right? Like
Chop
I would be
Robinson.
surprised if Chop is back. I'd be surprised if
Yeah.
Olu's back, right? Like it's just
Yeah,
the
there's no way, right? Like, it would be, I
although I
think,
would have said that last year
ill-advised
about
for both
Olu
of them.
too. I
But
do
and I
think
think
Olu is
his
gone,
situation
but like
was he said he wanted to get his degree and he's gonna walk here in a few weeks, so that was
yes.
certainly part of it. Um, yeah,
And
you
that
don't have a
decision, by
top
the way,
10
last
pick and
year,
come back 2 years in a row. Absolutely not.
that decision last year was made earlier than it was announced, like far earlier. Like
Absolutely,
in
yeah,
October.
he met with, I had reported that. He met with his family in October after the
Yeah.
Ohio State game. Yeah, so that is, again, I think a lot of these guys, some of them are still working through it, but I do think there's probably a good portion of them that know what they're gonna do, but they just wanna wait to say it until closer to the bowl game.
Which is
Um,
fine. Like I
yeah,
don't
totally fine.
it's
Um,
their decision. Who
it's their
cares? Like
decision, it's their
we
life,
tend to
it's
we
fine.
tend to
Whenever they
know
announce
which
it,
way
we're
it'll
gonna write
go.
about it, and we're gonna
Yeah,
talk about it.
I will say it's interesting. There are some guys with interesting decisions, and we can get into that in the coming weeks. I don't think
Mhm.
now's the time to do that, but I do think there are guys with more interesting decisions than I thought they would have 3 months ago, 2 months ago,
Mhm.
what have you.
And
But
his
yeah,
name's
this
Riley Thompson.
I I just want to know how many more
Same,
years
man.
is Riley
Ask me
Thompson allowed to play college football? Just somebody tell me.
I don't know if
I'm done
anyone
asking. Somebody
yeah,
tell me how many more years Riley Thompson can play college football. That's all I want to know.
yeah.
But no,
But John, you said, specialist that got me thinking. Another big day for Mr. Alex Falcons. He's turned into a
yeah,
really, really good story, I think, this year.
he did
Again,
great.
finding positives in the season. I think probably their most impactful transfer portal player from this cycle. Think about
Oh
that for a
no.
second.
Oh no. That is
Yeah.
true. Oh no.
Think about
That's not
that,
good.
right? You're two
That's not good.
specialists. I know I just kind of shot some daggers through your Dante Cephas hype train, and
Yeah,
hey, he's
whatever.
another one of those guys. I think in the coming weeks we'll be talking about with his future because there's another year there, right? If he
Will
wants
we?
it,
Will
will
we
we?
be talking? I don't even know if there's a decision to make here, if I'm being honest. Like, I don't know. That one,
Oh well, yeah. I mean,
I think it's pretty straightforward.
I think at this point, yeah. But John, it's never as straightforward as it seems. Come
That's
on,
true
you
because,
know.
and this is, I think people like lose sight of this too.
Mhm.
This isn't always just about like, oh, you can improve your draft stock. Like, guys have different motivations, they have different needs, their
Yeah.
family situations, their like all of those things go into account. And these guys make the best decision for them at the best time for them, right? Like that is what's most important. And
Can
whichever,
we?
whether it's to stay or go, like
Mhm.
they like I hate this idea that like, oh, look at player X, he would have gone in round X had he come back. It's like, well, you don't know what the situation is and why he needed to go earlier, or if
Mhm.
he needed to
And
go
player
earlier,
X
what's
could have
going on.
blown out his knee in the first game of the year had he come
Right.
back.
Like you like it's
Yeah.
and
I
especially for certain
never
positions, you don't get the second contract.
I never will fault someone for their decision because it is their decision, it
Agreed.
is their life. And I will say, John, because again, I am full of positives on this Saturday night. Um,
Sunshine and rainbows from Audrey.
sunshine and rainbows coming over from me on this end of town. Um, I enjoyed our post game conversations. I think Theo Johnson is one of those guys who is super insightful, really interesting guy. He
He
addressed the
might
team
be
afterward.
he
Go
might
ahead.
be my favorite player to talk to on the team, I think, at this point. Just very
Oof.
forthright, very honest, very transparent, and like
Are we gonna have to do a ranking, John, a power ranking of our favorite
I
interviews?
mean, we can, but
God,
like
that'd
I
be the
think,
nerdiest thing we do. Yeah.
yeah, I think Theo is he's not afraid to be emotional. He's not afraid to just kind of feel what he's feeling, which is
Hmm.
always nice and helpful. I mean, it happened last week. We talked about it when
Yeah.
he was really emotional and like again, credit to everyone involved in that like for handling it properly and handling it well. But Theo, like that happens because Theo isn't afraid to show who he is, and he deserves a lot of credit for that.
And he talked to us on, I think it was Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday he was on Zoom with us. Again, like you talk about a team captain who has to answer for a lot of stuff that he probably doesn't want to answer to, right? Like
Yeah,
we're talking to him after they change offensive coordinators, and he took all of our questions on Tuesday. After the game again today, he came out, he talked to us, and he addressed the team afterward. And James Franklin had mentioned it. And Theo Johnson used that time afterward to thank James Franklin in front of the entire team. Theo said that he's like, Coach Franklin does a lot for us. He kind of takes some of the heat for us. And he's like, I just felt that it was really appropriate. And I think, John, probably the timing right now after the past week, there's been a lot of
yeah.
questions, a lot of opinions. Certainly you and I have them because that's our job to have them
Right.
and to write
Here's the
about this
thing.
program.
We talked about
Mhm.
this a little bit with Yurcich. I think we, and I'm guilty of this sometimes. Like we lose the humanity of
Are
of
you
the
saying
people
we're
involved in
jaded,
the
John?
situation. No, but I'm saying like we lose sight of like this is a person, right? Like, and it's easy to let it happen, right?
Hmm.
Because especially when you're a fan, like it's almost more natural for it to happen. But like I think you could really tell. James talked about what Theo said and everything, and he talked about
He was
senior
getting
day.
choked up. I thought he was going to
He
cry.
was I think he was tearing up by the end of it, like, and he kinda got out of there, you know
Hmm.
what I mean, before he did, but,
Because
like
my question came before this, which that probably is what started the emotions. Yeah.
yeah, right, I'm sure. Uh, but no, I think it's one of those situations where you can kind of see
Hmm.
the realness, right? Like, the why a lot of these guys like him because he's just talking about Mike Gesicki coming over to his house,
Hmm.
right? And he's getting emotional, and I think the phrase he uses is, like, something about, like,
He said
how
something like,
much
"It's not fake." He already said, like, he's
yeah,
like, "I
it's
don't
like
fake
how
that."
like these guys mean a lot to me or something like that, and
Mhm.
that's when like his voice like he choked up a little. And like I think that to his credit, like James has a reputation for a lot of things. I don't think his relationships with his players, like I think those are meaningful to him, right? Like
Yeah.
I think that's
I mean,
pretty
there's a
clear.
reason why guys
Uh,
invite him to their wedding, right? Like,
right.
he has a really good relationship with Trace McSorley. He has a really good relationship with Nick Scott. There's so many of these guys, right? You see them, they come back, they're on the sidelines like that. That's genuine. And the point that Theo Johnson made, he said, he's like, I think we need to be appreciative of this guy because he goes, he saved people's lives. He's like, listen, he's like, some of my teammates, they could have been in rough situations had they not come here, but he gave them a chance. He believed in them, and so I thought that was a really good kind of human look right at this
Yeah,
week.
and
And I
this is
will say, you mentioned Mike Yurcich. Did you catch his hoodie, John?
no, I did
Did you
not.
see his
I did
hoodie?
not see Mike today.
It had like a cartoon. I don't say, I don't know. Cartoon's probably the right word. It had like an image of James Franklin on his hoodie. I tweeted a
Oh, really?
photo of it out. Yeah, yeah. So
Uh,
again, I mean, kind of a bit of a statement there. It's from Mike Yurcich. So yeah, I mean, I do think that is because Mike was one of the honorary game captains today, along with Aaron Maben. Yeah, I do think that stuff is certainly genuine. I think it's certainly warranted, and I think Senior Day also brings out of a lot of emotions in people
Yeah,
too. Um,
but I think you're right about like I think what
what was
happened
it?
last week. Yeah, I don't like saying that. Stop catching me on that. I
Ooh,
got to stop myself from telling you that you're right from now on.
yeah,
But I think
I
last
wait
week
for it.
actually made this a little bit sweeter for
Mhm,
everyone. As weird as that sounds, like they're not happy they lost last week, to be clear. But like when you see the downside, and then you can kind of have this like reprieve, right, from all of the realness of people being mad at everyone for
mhm,
like you know what I mean, how frustrated everyone is with where the program's at. Like you get this reprieve of your players telling you they appreciate you and they care about you. I'm sure that feels really good. And like you even see like James has obviously grown a lot too, right? The way he handled last week's situation when one of his players was trying to defend him, right? He didn't engage, he just like kept going.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think like this, and this was honest. This is what I wrote about following the game because like there's not like you want to write about Drew and everything, but we just don't know enough yet, right? To form conclusions on where
Oh,
they're
I
going to
wrote
go.
about Drew in
Oh,
the
listen,
offense.
I am too in my good, bad, ugly column. It
Mhm,
is the intro, but it's one of those things that's tough to flesh out fully
mhm.
yet, right? And so I wrote about like the emotion and how like yeah, 10-2 may not feel good to fans on the outside, but there's gonna be a lot of guys in that locker room who remember 10-2 forever. You know what I mean? Like they remember it like it's gonna be a core memory
Not
for them. And
everybody's
like
gonna go play in the NFL, right?
yeah,
Like
like there's
that's
like
the other part of this.
we like the perspective of what a game like Saturdays means, right? Like it's I said the one of the lines that I had hit in there was like in the grand scheme of things, like it does not mean anything to beat Rutgers on senior day, but to so many of those guys,
Mhm.
like it means everything, right? But looming over all this is that to a lot of people, 10-2 won't matter. So I do think like that's important to say that, like, yes, for all of the nice things we've said on this pod, like I fully understand people being frustrated with 10-2 looking like the trajectory
Oh,
still and
absolutely.
wanting more out of it and wanting better out of that. And they need to make some stark improvements to get there, right? Starting with this offensive coordinator hire that James absolutely has to nail. But I also think it's important to be human sometimes, right? And to remember that aspect of these
You
things.
know, John, it sounded like in your story and your analysis, your kind of synopsis of today you just gave us there, sounded like you found a positive in Saturday.
I did find a positive.
See, we're just
Uh,
going all Ted Lasso over here. Maybe that's
that's
what we
true.
need.
Listen,
I'm gonna get
listen.
a
I will
you need
not.
a bumper coaster behind you, John. That's what you need.
Listen, I'm probably gonna catch it from people for this, but I love Ted Lasso. Like I love that show.
Oh,
So I
absolutely,
won't, I won't, I
absolutely.
won't, I won't
Yeah.
listen to any criticism of it. But
Can we get to
unless
the defense, John? I want to talk a little bit about Chop Robinson and Deni Dennis
yeah,
Sutton.
yeah,
Because I think every week we gloss over the defense because the offense has given us a lot to talk about. So yeah, I kept it positive. There's a lot to talk about. Um, Kobe King was somebody that James Franklin had singled out as having a good game. Johnny Dixon leads all cornerbacks in FBS with sacks. Right, that's one of those. Again, that is not
which
a
is kind of
stat I would
wild.
have projected at
They
the
do
beginning of
they
this
blitz
year.
him a ton though, and the Prowler. Like he's the guy coming off the edge. He's really good at it too, to his credit.
Mhm.
But no, I think maybe there will be a better time later, I think, to flesh out just how awesome this defense is. Something that I think we've said a lot on this pod to
Mhm.
some people's dismay, just how good it is. But this pass
Oh,
rush is
John. See, now
incredible.
you're gonna find Rutgers people who are they're hate watching us right now, and they're gonna take offense to this.
Listen, the view counts the same whether they're enjoying it or they're not. But I do think like that like this people should enjoy this defense because it's not gonna I think it's going to be really good again next year. It's not going to be this, right? You're not going to
Mhm.
have, in all likelihood, Adisa Isaac and Chop Robinson. Still have Deni Dennis Sutton, who in the end might be the best of
Man,
the group.
he's
But you're
special.
probably, yeah, but you're
I
probably not
think
going to have Kalen King. You're not going to have Johnny Dixon. enjoy this group because it's going to look
Don't know
different.
if you'll have
And
Manny Diaz. TBD
right.
in coaching search season, right?
And Manny was on the field with his dad and some family members, like taking photos after the game.
Oh, was
And
it? I didn't
like
catch that.
yeah, and it was this nice moment, but it was one of those things
Did
like
you weasel your
when
way into any of the photos, John? Are you like lurking in the background?
I'm like in the background of every photo. I hate it so much. I just
Always
find my
there.
way into these things. My mother sent me a photo, I think this was like 3 years ago, of James's post game interview where when my hair was long, when it was like down to my shoulders, and you could see like my hair, like the way I had it like pulled over, it looked like my beard or my hair was wrapped around my beard, and like that it was
No.
one continuous thing. I'll show you this. I don't know if I
I need
had
to
to have
see
shown you this
this.
before. I'm
I
not
don't think I've
tweeting
seen
this
it.
one out. I apologize to the listeners. You don't get
Show
to
me,
see
and I
this one.
promise I will never screenshot it and never tweet it.
Yeah, right. That's why the next time I see you in person, I will show you this photo when your phone is away and you can't take a photo of it. But
Fair.
yeah, I find my way in the backgrounds of these things. I hate it so much. But yeah, this defense is going to look very, very different next year, and I think people need to like appreciate what this is now because, and now it does kind of suck for fans, right? Because it's a little bit of a waste of how good it
You
really
don't
was.
have
But
an offense to pair with it. Yeah.
yeah, that doesn't take away just how great it was. Great it is. You still got 2 left.
KJ Winston. Pick today,
He's
John.
he's a
He's
star.
good.
Like
He's good.
like he is the next safety for them,
Mhm.
right? Like and we kind of knew this last year too. We talked you and I did, obviously not on the podcast, but talked about like just how good KJ Winston could be, and I've been a KJ Winston guy since he came from DeMatha. But like he's excellent in coverage. He feels the game really well, right? And it's
Mhm.
tough to like you know what I mean,
And that's so
explain
much
exactly what
part
I
of
mean.
that position.
Yeah, right. It's feeling where the ball's going. It's feeling receivers around you. It's feeling where you need to be and when you need to be there and when to make decisions and when to react. And you can tell it's all instinctual with him, and he's kind of in the right place at the right time a lot. That was the exact case today. He read the quarterback. He saw that they were going to go right to the sticks, and he beat the wide receiver to the spot, right? And he cut off the
Yeah.
spot even. And I think he's incredible. And by the way, when we talk about next year's defense, it'll has a chance to be a top 10 unit once again. We talk about the guys anchoring it this year. Next year, we're going to be talking about Denida and Sutton. We're going to be talking about KJ Winston, and we're going to be talking about those 2 guys as the key tenants of that group.
Yeah, and I will say after the Winston pick, I was looking over on my binoculars because I don't know, I felt like I did a lot of looking through the binoculars today at the sideline.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty nice, pretty cool scene. KJ Winston was over there with Terry Smith and Ola Adams. And Ola and Terry both had an arm around him, and like Terry was laughing and smiling. Like it was just one of those good moments because Anthony Poindexter, of course, is always upstairs
Yep.
during games for people who don't know that. But yeah, John, I'm looking. I got the stats in front of me. Leading tackler today was Kobe King with 10. This defense today, 7 tackles for loss. 3 sacks. Chop Robinson had 1. Johnny Dixon, of course, the other one, and then Kozai Izzard and Abdul Carter split the other one. I thought Abdul Carter again is kind of peaking at the end of the year here.
Been playing a lot better lately.
Yeah, I think again
Another guy, by the way.
next year.
Yeah, next year. That's a name. Obviously,
Yeah.
that was not on purpose. Like he is with those 2 as the 3 stars.
But to me, Chop Robinson, the forced fumble, the recovery there, it's like holy God, he just put Gavin Winston.
He's so good. He just like he puts a lot of like offensive tackles in hell for like 60 minutes. Like they're just gonna have a bad time, and he beats guys off the edge so quickly. Like you have no chance. His first step is so unbelievably fast. Yeah, I mean, honestly, with a lot of these guys and a lot of this defense, it's like, what more do you say that we haven't said all year? All the stuff, if you go back and listen to every podcast, all the awesome stuff we said about them, still true. Still just as excellent now as the defense has been all year.
Well, John, there were a couple chunk plays early on, especially that, you see them complete them and you say, ooh, is Rutgers going to have a chance?
Nah,
but
they happen.
Then 2 times Rutgers got down to the 7. Penalties both times on Rutgers backed them up. They couldn't do anything. Kirk Shiraka has an awful lot to look at with his offense. It is dumpster fire. Can I say it?
Yeah,
I just said it. Dumpster fire. I will say I wanted an end zone fade from Kirk Shiraka just for old time's sake.
Yeah.
Today, but we didn't get that. But you know what, John? I mean, you're right. This is a remarkably talented defense, but it's also one that we keep focusing on the other side of the ball because if they just had a good offense. I'm not even saying an elite caliber
It
offense.
doesn't even like if they had an offense that could be
Functional.
functional against good teams. Like the offense has been
Yeah.
good
Right.
against bad teams, right? Like it's been
Mhm.
good. Like you can argue today that the offense was good. The passing game wasn't, but the offense
Yeah.
was good because they ran the ball really
Ran the ball.
well.
Yeah.
Um, but I think like if they could have been functional against Ohio State, functional against Michigan, like
Mhm.
we're talking about a completely different outcome.
Yeah,
But yeah, I
they
think
looked so
that's it.
bad, the offense in those biggest moments, and that's back to the you
It makes
mentioned
it
the
seem like this is
defense
a
too.
bad offense in general when I don't think that's true. I think it's mostly just average to above average, and in those moments, it's bad.
Yeah, in the marquee moments where you need something to happen, it's not there, and of course, now all this week, the attention shifts to Drew Allar and his health moving forward. Um, I mean, that's the storyline, John. That's what everybody wants to know. That's what, I probably probably will have to ask about again, maybe on Monday. Because
Someone's gonna have to,
the question's coming. I can guarantee you the question's coming. It's probably gonna come again on Tuesday as well at
and
practice.
I'm sure James knows. He has to know. It's your
Does he?
quarterback. You
Does he? I
have
mean, the
to.
way he responded to me, I don't know. Does he?
I don't know. I think he did because he answered it.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
again,
true.
like
Yeah,
this is the whole
eventually he did
thing.
answer it.
Yeah, but we will get
Mhm.
answers for that as the week moves on.
Is there anything else we forgot, John, from this?
I don't think
God,
so.
I feel like when we look back at some point, like, um, late in the as the winter drags on, and the spring and the summer, when like football season is so far out of sight, this is one of those games that I am not going to remember much when I think back on it. I mean, I will
No, and
remember Bo Pribula coming in. I will remember the 39-yard
yeah,
rush that you completely missed. I'm sure Bo Pribula and his family will remember that moment. That's certainly a
yes.
huge moment, big day for them. But yeah, this is just kind of one of those games. It's because the numbers in front of me. I will bring this up. The attendance today, again, it always goes by tickets sold, not butts and seats.
I thought
105,000, 114. I thought the rest of the stadium filled in very nicely,
yeah, the student section
considering.
did not, but, like, I
Yeah,
thought the rest
it's
of the stadium filled in
Thanksgiving
really
break
well.
week.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
students,
kinda knew it was gonna happen once they lost last week.
yeah, they were clearing out of here Thursday, Friday.
Mhm.
Nope, and even honestly, years when they've had really good special teams, people have not stayed for the game. It's always
Yeah,
a kind of a tougher ticket, especially with
it's
the
just
students to get people to stay.
yeah, it's hard, right? Like, a lot of people prioritize going home and seeing
Well,
their
there
families
were a
the
lot of
rest.
people coming at me on Twitter pregame saying, they need to take the tickets away from the students. That if they can't be there, like, dude, I'm not gonna tell an 18 to 22-year-old who's been
Yeah.
here since August that they can't go home and see their friends and family. Like,
Yes,
sorry.
like, come on. What are we
Come on, like
talking about?
you've
It's
seen
not
this
even a
team,
discussion.
you've seen this team in the marquee games. It's a tough ask for people to come here
Yeah,
for Rutgers. But John, as you and I were leaving the press box tonight, they were shutting that thing down, man. The
they
winterizing was
were
starting.
not to get all like, "Wow, time has passed," but, like, wow, time has passed, right? Like, it is
Yeah.
wild that we won't be back in Beaver Stadium until the spring game. It is
Or until
it
Monday for
has
the presser, but
oh, back in, like, the press
yeah,
box,
the
I
press
should
box,
say,
yeah. Fair.
until the spring game, which is kinda crazy, right? Like, this year is I was talking with Josh Moyer about this. Like, I think part of it is like they just had their inflection points so late in the year. Like, we knew it would be Ohio State and Michigan, and the second inflection point was the 10th game of the year. That it kind of made
Mhm.
everything else feel not as consequential until we got there, and then we learned things. But yeah, this year has been it's been wild. This is my obviously my third full time season, fifth season overall. Like on the beat for you, it's season 45 on the beat, as everyone knows.
Yeah,
Uh,
45 for sure.
but it has been like it's been crazy, and like it's been. I mean, we're gonna be doing this still, but the fact that this is the last home game already is kind of wild.
Yeah, and I think you definitely sensed the players soaking that up to the fans as they were
Yeah,
exiting. I think a lot of people were soaking that up as well. Um,
the
yeah,
beat
it's
reporters
always
taking photos of the empty field as we all do.
yeah. I got a nice actually. I forgot to tweet it, but I got a nice time
Mm,
lapse of the sun setting on Beaver Stadium
nice,
because
that's good. We
now that
love
the
that.
sun sets at like 5:15.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you get that at halftime?
Yeah, yeah, that was got that one early. Um, but John, we will be back early this week because of
Yeah, we got
you
to
and I will
figure
be
out.
hitting the road
Yeah, we
to
got to figure out when
Detroit.
we're going to record. Everything's going to be moved up except for the Monday presser because you can't move up a Monday presser any quicker.
Don't tempt
Uh,
him, John. Do not say
listen, I
that.
won't
Do
go.
not
I
say
will not
that.
go. I just won't go. period.
Yeah.
Actually, Eagles don't play till
Someone
Monday
has
night
already
anyways.
come for my Sundays before. I'm hoping we have a news-free Sunday around here.
Yeah.
Because the Packers play at 1 o'clock and,
Listen,
priorities.
the Eagles play the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. I'm going to be very anxious on Monday night.
It's going to be it's going to be a great game.
Going to be a terrifying game for me.
Mhm.
But no, we'll be back at some point this week to preview Michigan State, to talk about where things stand potentially with the offensive coordinator, with Drew Allar's injury, with everything. We will
I'll
have
share
you
my
covered.
thoughts on the Land Grant Trophy.
I won't, because unlike everyone else, I don't have any of them. I don't care.
I have a lot of thoughts.
Like,
Okay. I'll carry
just,
us, John. It's fine.
That's fine. You can handle that discussion. But we will be back with all of that stuff. You can find Audrey on Twitter, of course. In the meantime, at OddSnyder4, all of our work, of course, at theathletic.com. You can find me at John Sauber on Twitter. There is no H in John, and there never has been.
You sure
can
about
find
that?
all of my, I'm 100% sure, no matter how many times you put it in there. You can find all of my writing at centerdaily.com, CENTRE daily.com. That'll do it for this episode of the Nittany Dispatch. We look forward to talking to you again this week. Until next time, have a nice day.